Our first and only review of the day is going to be for the film The People's Joker there. So The People's Joker is a film from Vera Drew there. Vera Drew, who also stars in this movie as well, as long as writes and directs this movie, along with Brie LaRose, who also writes this movie there. And it takes the DC mythos of the Joker along with other DC established characters there and kind of warps it into their own kind of worldview story here about a exploration of gender identity, of gender expression there. Um, I mean, I promise I won't have Aeris on to always review just movies about trans issues there related there. I would, other reviews there possible for her to come on and do stuff. But yes, that's kind of the setup you have there of taking this film all the way of her narrating her life from as a little girl all the way up until she becomes the infamous Joker character, going to Gotham to become an aspiring comedian there and to premiere on an SNL. Basically, I think they said it's basically like SNL with Lauren Michaels, like a sketch comedy show there.
It's
With
UCB, but it's also SNL.
So yeah, this made a lot of rounds kind of in the indie circuit there. A lot of people talking about this film. I think it initially came out in like 2022, but then it kind of popped up again in 2024 there and a couple other years there because it was at the Film Fest of Toronto where it first premiered there. But yeah, and a lot
I
of
think
people
it played one night at TIFF, and then Warner Brothers brought the legal hammer down, and then there was like a whole issue. There were a lot of issues with that.
So it is on Amazon Prime right now. People can check it out. People can watch it there. You have to pay though for it, which I did. I ended up paying.
It's
$5.
also on Mubi.
Mubi, yeah, the brother of Tubi. You have that kind of going on. But yeah, Eris, what are your thoughts on The People's Joker?
This is an interesting movie for me because I really like it. I think it's a great movie. There are some things about it that I struggle with. Some things about it that I actually enjoyed more in the theater than I did watching it again at home, and some things I enjoyed more about it watching it at home than I did in the theater. But also the experience is different. When I watched it in the theater, I didn't really know what to expect. I had seen like one trailer. I knew it was gonna be like I knew I had a general sense of the aesthetic, but I still like really didn't know what I was getting into. So a lot of it was just like getting used to the whole vibe of it the first time I saw it. But it was also, I feel like it was a more emotional experience for me in the theater than it was at home, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think it's incredible. I think Vera Drew knows what she's doing. It's obviously a very personal film to her, and there's parts of it that I really relate to a lot. Yeah, I think it's great. I think if you watch the first like 5 minutes of it and decide it's not for you, you're probably right.
Yeah. So if you see the trailer for this film, it has a very, kind of cheap looking student film. It looks like if you've ever seen a Neil Breen film, kind of one of those type of movies he tries to make. Neil Breen is one of these disaster artists, kind of like Tommy Wiseau, who a lot of people clown about their movies, about how terrible they are. But it seems like here, even though it has this kind of aesthetic of like this obviously cheap looking special effects and CGI and some animation. Like, I mean, obviously, the budget that they're on, they can't, obviously splurge there and do all these very professional special effects. But also it seems like that's kind of intentional in telling this story, this kind of way it's kind of being presented here in this kind of crazy type manner. With it, like this mix of, like you see in this trailer, they'll do live action with animation. All of a sudden, there'll be sequences where it turns into animation. At one point, there's even stop motion kind of going on with like Poison Ivy, which happens in the film. Like all this kind of mix of different things kind of going on. So yeah, I mean, if you see the kind of trailer for this and you automatically go like, yeah, you probably decide within the first kind of maybe minute or so watching the trailer that whether it is or isn't for you. And just, I mean, hey, if you just wanted to see a much better Joker film than this right here, than Joker 2 Filet Ado, I mean, because there's also musical sequences in the People's Joker, just like here in Joker 2, and the musical sequences are actually better. I think there's a lot better. At least they're doing original songs and not just the jukebox musical where they're doing songs that we already heard, except poorly. There you had that kind of going on. I mean, in relation to the Joker, and we see a lot of that kind of going on now with obviously the popularization of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker films. How do you think, as far as those two things, really play such a huge part in this movie?
Well, I mean, I love the way it incorporates all, like, a lot of the Batman lore. And like retooling it to fit the narrative. I I love how, like, the character of Mr. J, Vera Drew's trans man boyfriend, it was Carrie Coon and then transitioned into Jason Todd. Like, just like little things like that, like how they kind of work in all these like different versions of Robin and different versions of the Joker into like one very chaotic but very cohesive narrative. I really like a lot. I really like, the Penguin's a big character in this movie. I think he's the best. He's so funny. Poison Ivy, like you said, and Batman's one of them.
Groom.
A minor.
Yeah, they present Batman as kind of groomer here. I don't know how maybe some people will feel about that as far as messing with the lore as far as it goes with DC Warner Brothers stuff.
Also, everyone knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
But yeah, I mean, I like that as well, how they kind of incorporate that. A lot of the different, like you said, it basically has a lot of his Rose Gallery Batmans there, Catwoman there, the Penguin, who's the best friend of the Vera Drew character of the Joker, who she partners with him in coming up through the comedy scene there in Gotham and doing a lot of that. And they form an anti-comedy club. They're kind of going on in Gotham there.
Which I think that is crucial to like understanding the movie. Is like, we're making anti-comedy that's bad on purpose, and the movie you're watching is, I like to call it the Channel Awesome aesthetic. Before all the unpleasantness, of course.
Yeah. It kind of does have that little bit of YouTube kind of feel, but in a good way, I think, kind of sketch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's done much better than Channel Awesome, but I also think it's very clear. And I said this when I first watched the movie. Like, I think it's really cool that well, I think it's interesting. We'll see if it ends up being cool or not. But I think so far it's cool. It's like there are these young filmmakers coming up with their own shit, getting it put into theaters that's clearly very, very influenced by the internet and by internet culture. And I think that's going to make for some very interesting art coming out. Like this is really cool, weird outsider art. And like that's like very influenced by, 2008 to 2013 YouTube and stuff. And I'm curious to see what like more and more young filmmakers, up and comers are going to do, especially now that like every studio is just constantly hemorrhaging money, and we're probably going to see like I think we're already seeing like a big push and a big rise in indie film popularity.
Yeah. There's that film right now that's the GTA movie, the Grand Theft Hamlet.
Oh, yeah, Grand Theft Hamlet. I kind of do want to watch that.
So that's another thing that people are really praising a lot, where it's just indie filmmakers kind of coming together and doing something kind of really great there on a small scale, and that's getting heavily reviewed. I think it even showed in theaters. There were people actually watched it, and I do want to check it out. I do want to kind of give that a watch. But when you watch The People's Joker, I think it does give you that inspiration there from these kind of people doing this on this scale, coming together, making this kind of special thing and this special story of Vera Drew, of what she kind of wanted to tell, in kind of this amazing way. And I think very humorous movie, very, very funny.
It's very funny.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great things that you do here.
I remember when I when I first saw the movie, I was, let's see, when did the movie start coming out in theaters? It was like early 2024, right? Like what was it, like February or something?
I believe it was February, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I was less than a year on hormones, and I think I was less than a year just being out in general. And I went down to my local indie theater, and it was really cool. It was like kind of a packed house. There were a lot of trans women there. I watched it, and I was definitely like, huh. And like some parts of it got me, some parts of it didn't. I spent a lot of it getting used to the aesthetic of the movie. So I didn't really know how to feel about it at first, but I remember very vividly like that it gave me, well, okay. So like obviously not all trans people are a monolith. And my coming out story is very different from a lot of other people's, and the whole concept of the movie of like how she had a mom who was busy and demanding, and she like found solace in TV shows, and then like just kind of like found out about trans people through trash TV, and had that whole thought in her mind her whole life since she was a kid. Like, I grew up religious, so I had heard about, people who were quote unquote trapped in the wrong body. But I was such a good little kid that I was like, well, obviously God's perfect and God doesn't make mistakes, so that can't be right. Whatever. No need to think about this any further. And so I just like, it wasn't until I was much older, like I was a full-on adult, before I like actually started to question myself. Like I transitioned much later in life, and like when I watched the movie, I was like, damn, I really like was so hampered by religion growing up, and it gave me this weird sense of dysphoria. but like in a good way, in a way that I was like, wow, like that's crazy that a movie just made me feel like that. And I think it's so brilliant in capturing like Vera's experience growing up that, it can make even people who don't fully relate, but who also do because we're also trans, like it's really good at showing you other perspectives and making you feel emotions about that perspective. And I think that's fucking beautiful. And I think that's what's so amazing about movies.
Did you want to give your rating for that?
Well, I think I have it at like 4.5 stars right now. I might bump it up to 5 because I think I just convinced myself with that whole monologue.
I mean, if you want to give it This Is Cinema, yeah.
What are your rankings again? Remind me.
So the highest you can give something is This Is Cinema. Then below that is a peak. Below that is a tune in, and below that is a streaming.
What did I give? I saw the TV. I gave TV Go Cinema, right?
Yes.
Ooh, do I give this movie cinema? I will say I do like the aesthetics of it. Don't bother me. I think the emotions of the storytelling are so good, but it is a lot sometimes, and sometimes there are parts of the movie that do kind of feel like you're watching, a TikTok with like Subway Surfers playing and like Family Guy clips and shit. Like, it's like it can be a little overstimulating. But I think for how good the storytelling is, I think I gotta give it a This Is Cinema, but it's like some people aren't gonna like it, and I can totally understand why you wouldn't like it.
Yeah. I mean, This Is Cinema. For People's Joker. Me, I really enjoyed this. I get why people are talking about it as much as they were. The creativity of this. I mean, the parody that they do as far as bringing in the DC universe and using the Joker and then all the Batman characters there. I think it's very well done. And Vera Drew be able to craft this story, like you said, to really beautifully tell her own personal story there is really well done. And I did love that. I did love seeing that here with that. So for me, I'd give it a very high peak for me. I see what you're saying about like some of the stuff can get a little overstimulating, and then yeah, as a movie, there, I mean, like it is crazy in terms of all the things that they do. When it comes to a lot of the storytelling devices, that may be a little overwhelming for some people. But as far as I think the performances too, I mean, when it has to be dramatic, I think it does a great job at that. I think Vera Drew actually does deliver a pretty good dramatic performance in here as well as being a very humorous film. But yeah, I mean, this is what indie filmmaking. This is what you want to see: the absolute just brilliance and creativity there from young artists coming up, and just to see what
We
they
didn't
kind of.
even really talk about. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was gonna say we didn't really talk about Vera much. Like, I mean, she was, she was working for Comedy Bang Bang for a long ass time. Before this, I think this is her second feature. She's got good talent. I like that, TV Glow and I like that TV Glow and People's Joker were like the two really buzzy trans movies of 2024, and there were no other really buzzy trans movies at all in 2024.
Did you? She has another film, as you mentioned, The Wedding of Vera Drew. Did you ever see? Did you see that one?
I have not. I also haven't. I also haven't seen. We're All Going to the World's Fair either. If speaking of TV Glow.
Okay. So I'm interested to check that out after seeing this to see how kind of what she does there. But yeah, I mean, if people want to, it's on Mubi right now. And if you don't want to get Mubi or download Mubi, It's not on your TV streaming there. You can also get it on Amazon Prime. They have a link to a movie where you can rent movies from there. I rented it for $5. I don't regret that. I think it is worth it.
I also rented it for $5 and I don't regret it.
Yeah. So check it out on streaming now. Aeris gives it a This Is Cinema, and I give it a I peek there.